Hello, welcome to ITV Asia. My name is Sharon Landon. I'm the founder and managing director for Cross Cultural Interchange and also the program host for today's program, Executive Women with Focus on China. And my guest today is Diane Ho. She is the Marketing and Communications Director for Greater China with Jones Lang LaSalle. Diane, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and meet with me today. Diane's had about over 20 years of experience in the PR and communications industry in the U.S., Hong Kong, as well as China. And we're hoping that today she's going to be able to share some of her insights with us.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, so Diane, why don't you, with all your experience, why don't you first tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up coming to Shanghai in the first place?
It's actually a very long story, Sharon, so I'm not going to go into too much depth with it. Okay. I was born in Hong Kong, raised in the United States, and came back to Asia in 1992.
Okay.
And I think it was probably timing-wise a very good time to be back in Asia Pacific, because from then to now, we could see that the economy and everything has really shot through the roof, China in particular. So I think it was very fortunate for me to make that decision. My primary reason for coming back was to actually explore Hong Kong more and my Chinese roots.
Okay.
So it was more, it wasn't because I saw fortunes in Asia, but luckily there is fortunes in Asia today, and I think, like I said, it was an excellent move for me professionally.
Okay, and then professionally, I know you were working with your own consultancy in the U.S. Did you come over to Hong Kong with the job, or you came over to examine your roots or explore your roots, but how did you get started in Hong Kong market?
Actually, Hong Kong was in an interesting position in '92. It was right after 1989 when China had some issues, and a lot of Hong Kong professionals had opted to leave Hong Kong, so they were going through what they called the brain drain. I was coming back at a time where it was quite opportune, and I had my own consultancy, but I also realized in public relations you need to have a pretty strong network and understanding of a local market to be of value. And so I went in-house at that time and worked for the Hong Kong Industrial Technology Center. They were just starting up, and they were looking for someone to open their corporate communications department. And so, like I said, I actually took a step back professionally in order to understand the market. And then I gradually, very quickly picked up on the local market nuances in public relations. And my next role was, in 2 years, I was able to take on a group director role with Hill & Knowlton and helping them build their business-to-business group. And so, like I said, from that, I continued to grow within the firm, the Public Relations, which is an international company based out of the United States, but was very aggressively growing their operations in Asia Pacific. And following my group director role, I then had a great opportunity to expand again beyond just the Hong Kong market, and took on a role where they gave me an opportunity to look at client development across all of Asia Pacific.
Okay.
And so again, it was expanding not just my scope of services and understanding of the profession, but also geographically able to explore a lot more in this region. And so that gave me, like I said, an excellent opportunity to really expand professionally and also get a clear understanding of the dynamics and nuances of different markets in Asia Pacific, which are very different as compared to a lot of the United States, where individual cities may have nuances, but in Asia Pacific you're talking about totally different cultures. So it was very challenging and interesting. And then after that, I got an opportunity to actually take up the managing director role in China. And you asked me how did I get to Shanghai. In fact, I went to Beijing first.
Okay.
So China was my first Beijing was my first posting in China, and I spent 2.5 years there running the Hill & Knowlton operation. And again, I think one of the key challenges there was being somewhat young at the time, being a managing director, but also coming into a China operation where in 1998 China was starting to feel the impacts of the Asia economic crisis.
Right.
Because in '97 it hit Southeast Asia, and by 1998 it started to see the ripple effect into North Asia. And again, China in particular, facing a lot of challenges. Our business at Hill & Knowlton also had a bit of a shift at that time. And so I was going in really to stabilize our operation. And for the next 2.5 years, that's what we were able to do. Before, personally, I had met my husband.
Oh.
And so
Right.
that's what took me to Shanghai.
Okay. Okay. So you were talking about a little bit about the Asian crisis and stuff, and that actually affected Hill & Knowlton, as you mentioned. But how was that in regards to PR and communications as an industry? I mean, did that affect companies, and you guys, as a firm, had to deal with a lot of issues within that time period?
I think in public relations, as we say with most marketing, when a company is facing a downturn, it actually is a time to invest in marketing, not a time where a lot of people would cut. And primarily it's because your competitors will most likely cut. That is not necessarily the time that you want to do the same thing as competitors do. Marketing is actually where you can get a competitive advantage if you are investing in it and finding talent to really give you a strategic position in a marketplace. You want to be ramping up because the business side possibly isn't as strong. So that's where you do get an opportunity to really assess your own company and your brand and where you want to be going in the next few years. Again, a downturn is not a time to cut marketing. It's a time to invest in the company.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you moved over from the Hong Kong market into the Beijing market, what were some of the differences you saw? I mean, I guess culturally there's differences and stuff, but what were the major ones that you noticed?
It's funny that you should mention that because my boss today also has done the same thing at Jones Lang LaSalle, which is he's worked in Hong Kong for many years and made the move into China. And I think the most apparent one is the efficiency. Hong Kong, for many reasons, has an extremely efficient talent base as well as infrastructure. And so what you find when you come into China is because it is still developing, there are so many things that just aren't in place. Assumptions you just can't make. And so your hours are much longer. My Beijing time was getting in the office at 7:30 in the morning and sometimes not leaving till 10 at night. So it really wasn't conducive to having a personal life. But like I said, those 2.5 years were very exciting for me professionally and very challenging in a market like China. It's very rewarding when you do see some of the fruits of your labor making a difference in the operation. And I do think that those 2.5 years we did really tighten internal control systems. We really applied a lot more infrastructure around our business. Even though we could do a lot with our own company in regards to how we wanted to be as, set up our operations, what we still had to deal with a lot of our suppliers, our vendors, government environments, that still didn't have the kind of efficiency that we would like in our business. And in any business, I think you'll find that is probably the biggest challenge you find moving into China is the lack of assumptions that you can make in the marketplace.
Okay, I think China is still, even now, and they're making a lot of progress in a lot of things, but it's still a lot of work that the government has to.
But the exciting thing about China is that because it is a new market, when we, in our profession in public relations, we were doing such innovative things. And you still can. I always think that China has an opportunity to leapfrog in any profession that you're in because it is a new market. You don't have a lot of the, let's say, skeletons in the closet. You don't have a lot of baggage you're bringing into the industry. If you can cut through all that, and I think the government with some good insights and foresight into where they want to be in any particular industry, they can hopefully avoid all the troubles or the issues that industries have faced in other markets, in other developed markets. Because we do. If you really learn from history, as they say, you can get up the learning curve very quickly. And I think China has that opportunity.
Okay. I know you mentioned a lot of the long hours and things like that that you worked where there was really no life, because a lot of people I know, when they think about PR and communications, they think of a very glamorous type of job where people are going to parties and meeting the press and stuff. So you're just saying there's a lot more that goes behind a job in dealing with communications.
Yeah, public relations is interesting because a lot of people think it is about going to cocktail parties. In fact, I always say I never want a piece of business at a cocktail party. We did a lot of understanding the market, understanding our clients, where their business objectives were, and where we need to tailor programs around that. And most of my hours were not spent at all in any events. It was really focused on, like I said, whether it be research or sitting and listening to clients or interacting with colleagues so that we were focused around what the client's needs were. Very different from what the external view of public relations are. But certainly there are some firms that are probably a bit more glam. I think professional international public relations firms probably are less so. They do get some high-profile projects, which are very exciting to be involved in. And that's probably one of the things I miss now that I'm not in an international firm, because those are quite exciting. And again, you get to work with some very interesting leaders around the world, really, because when it comes to China, a lot of CEOs come into this market, and they do make an effort of understanding it, and they will actually work with international firms in their communication strategies. So again, that side of it is quite exciting and fun.
Okay. Well, have you seen any differences then since you first, I guess let's just deal with the China market, when you first went to Beijing and now, which is, when did you go to Beijing?
98.
In 98. And now, are there any changes in this particular industry, major changes that you notice?
Absolutely. I think, and I actually was coming into China even before that. When I was working at Hill & Knowlton in 94, I had many clients who we didn't just serve in Hong Kong. We actually did sort of cross the border into China, whether they be opening factories or opening facilities in the China market. We were helping them in raising their profile in the China market already. So that was back in the mid-90s. So I can tell you across the 10 years, China in the public relations field has matured. You'll find, certainly from the media perspective, there's a lot more specialization. Before, when in the mid-90s, most journalists were generalists. They didn't cover a particular beat. So it was difficult to find a journalist who understood any particular kind of industry, whether it be on the finance side or in our business, real estate. Very few. Now you're seeing a lot more who, when you speak to them about a particular industry, they already have a base understanding. In the early 90s, there wasn't a base understanding about any profession or industry. And so everyone was learning, everyone was trying to grapple with that. I think the other side of that with the media is that they've become more professional as well. And in the early days, there was a lot of requests for incentives to attend briefings, or incentives
little red envelopes or something like that.
And that hasn't completely gone away, but you're seeing a lot more journalists who have a professional ethics, and that you see a lot more reputable publications in the marketplace. And I think many good practitioners will actually find those professional reporters, because you will get a more balanced story. You will get objectivity around a particular issue or news, if you want to say.
Okay, so now with all the experience that you've had in this PR communication industry within a firm, coming here to Shanghai, you are now sort of like what you said before, you've taken a step back and you're actually working in-house with Jones Lang LaSalle rather than with a firm. What do you see, I mean, what are the differences and what led you to that decision actually?
Yeah, and I think personally, certainly, that was a big decision. What we call it in our industry is going in-house, which is we were on a consulting and then going in-house. And for me, the reason, there's twofold why Jones Lang LaSalle. One is, I think, a very reputable and highly professional international company. Secondly, they gave me a really good opportunity to apply all the experience that I've had in a relatively senior role, which is a director position looking at Greater China, so I get to apply my experience. The other thing that they've given me is an opportunity to have some flex schedule, which was really important for me, having a family. And then, like I said, the other thing that is really important about this particular role is that I was so focused on public relations. This has helped me to expand a little bit. So I'm actually getting to get experience and learn again on the marketing side. So to me, it's really a win-win situation for all of us. And the company certainly has found my experience helpful in building and strengthening their marketing communications team in the region.
Okay. Now, you just talked about the company being a great company to work for, because I know that recently they were listed in the Fortune magazine for the 100 top companies to work for, and I believe they were the only real estate company listed. Yes. So I guess you made the right choice.
They were also the only one in Forbes, Platinum 400.
Oh, right.
Platinum so 2 400. Different awards that they've gotten on a global basis, which you're right, they are definitely a leader and continue to strive for that. And that's what's exciting about working for this firm, is that we have an opportunity through marketing communications to continue to innovate and to continue to look at where it's important to understand our clients and how we innovate around our clients so that there is value to our clients as we begin to innovate and add services and re-look at what the priorities are for us as a service company. And it's similar to consultancy and public relations. It's still service-oriented. We're a service professional firm. So that's not so vastly different from what I came from, but it's very specialized in an industry, which is real estate.
Right. China, like we all know, it's growing tremendously. And, for your industry, real estate industry, there is a ton of competition out there. I mean, companies, small ones, large ones, international ones are all here. Now, how does Jones Lang LaSalle differentiate themselves? Or how do you guys keep yourself on top of the competition?
Well, I think we are clear leaders in many ways. And one of the things that we don't try to focus too much on is what our competitors are doing. I think that we have to stay focused and be true to our clients and be true to our profession. And so we're always looking at innovation for this industry and not trying to benchmark to any other competitor. I think we are, again, really yards ahead in regards to a lot of different areas. We've already focused a lot of efforts in getting our arms around sustainability, and that's going to be a key push for us as a firm globally. And again, that comes back to wanting to be corporately responsible in any market that we're in. And again, this is another key area where I'm quite passionate about and where I think China can actually leapfrog developed markets if we can get government regulations around this, if we can look at our advice to developers and owners who are building buildings, to corporates that are coming in, who often have their own sustainability metrics that they want to measure against. Because most companies international or global companies are looking to be more responsible to the communities in which they serve and do business in. So that's, like I said, something that's really quite interesting for us and where we do think we have differentiation. We also have probably the most in-depth and thorough research team across Asia Pacific, where we do a number of different retail, whether it be retail or industrial in any particular sector. But again, very deep and very thorough research in this particular industry. And we've been doing it for over 100 years. So you've got a lot of data that we can track back and look at the cycles of real estate.
In China?
In China, we've only been here 12 years, but certainly that we've been here to document and begin to track the cycles of the China market as well.
Okay, so are you guys located like all throughout China, or what are your major markets?
Well, we've done business in over 30 cities in China.
Okay.
But we've got existing presence in 18 cities in Greater China.
Okay. Now, just a little while ago, you mentioned government regulatories. Are there? I mean, as with anything else, the government has a lot to do in regards to getting China up to par with the international market and stuff. Now, in relation to your industry, are there certain regulations that you guys are looking to that might be positive to the real estate industry, or certain ones that you're hoping that it might be thrown out by the government or something? I mean, what are positive things that would affect your industry you're hoping that?
I think China, like I said, as a whole, is still looking at how they want to shape their industries, and real estate certainly is one of them. And what we've seen in the past couple of years is that there's a lot of regulation around that. They haven't made, I think, maybe they haven't planned out exactly what they want to do, because there is probably more regulations that are coming up on maybe more frequent than normal in other markets. And so what we see is that I think we would like to be part of that process if we can, and we have already started that through some of the colleagues that we have in Hong Kong who have been invited to participate in some of the government bodies who are looking at regulating the market, in the real estate market. And we are obviously very open to share some of our knowledge with the Chinese government in regards to what has worked and what has been effective in other markets when it comes to real estate. Ultimately, the Chinese government's got to make the best decision for what they see in their marketplace. And so it won't be exactly the same, but they can at least understand how other markets have looked at it and assessed it and analyzed it, and then set up regulations around it. But I do think that it's going to take time for China to get all the regulatory issues or policies and procedures in place for that. The one area, like I said, that we're very interested in is obviously for China to get a stronger sense of how sustainability can fit into helping them in the long term in the construction and real estate industry.
Okay. Well, I think our time is just about up, but one last question for you. I mean, for your particular job, what do you think is the most difficult aspect of what you do here in China?
Well, like I said, I think in public relations, it's still a developing, and marketing in particular, marketing overall, is still a developing profession. And so I think credibility behind what marketing actually adds for a corporation and adds to the strategic development of a plan for business is something that we still like to feel is still a bit of a challenge for us in China.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Diane, once again for coming by and talking with us. And thank you for watching, and see you next time.